Hey folks, my name's Steve Lang, and this in front of us is a 2005 Chrysler Town and Country, a 14-year-old minivan that frankly doesn't have much demand anywhere here in the South or in much of the United States now. However, it actually was my best buy today, and as soon as this Jeep Patriot goes through, I'll show you why. When this vehicle went up on the block today, there was a sign on the very front of it that said TMU, and that means True Miles Unknown. True Miles Unknown means exactly how it sounds. They didn't know exactly how many miles it had. However, the person who was selling it, who was more or less a rep for a new car dealership in the area, didn't believe it had True Miles Unknown. So what they ended up doing was they decided to debate it. And they debated it on the block for over a minute. And that may not sound like a long time, but in the auction business, I actually worked as an auctioneer for several years before I became a full-time dealer. And nothing killed a sale worse than having a car sit in front of you and you can't sell it. Everyone's staring at the same piece of scenery and they get bored. And eventually, unless they're waiting for a vehicle, they go somewhere else. Now eventually they did sell it as True Miles Unknown. And because a 14-year-old minivan isn't exactly high in demand, there ended up not being a lot of bidders on it. It started at around $4,000, and the auctioneer was doing his chant. He was going, "How about it? Give me $4,000 over here. Give me $4,000 anywhere. How about it? Give me $4,000." And from there he went down to $3,000, then down to $2,000, and I put in a bid at $1,500. From there on in, someone did 16, I did 17, I did 18, they did 18 and a half, then I did 19, auctioneer has for $2,000, and lo and behold, there wasn't. I bought this vehicle for $1,900 plus a $200 buy fee. Now there are two surprises with this vehicle. The first is that it's showing to have only 14,000 miles on it. That's not correct. However, what I did was I decided that I would look at the Carfax history for a 14-year-old minivan. And I found out that this vehicle probably has, by the way, that's not sequencing like that, that's just the video doing it. It actually had less than 50,000 miles on it. And not only that, this vehicle had some unique characteristics that let me know who the owner was before I bought it. And what I always tell folks, as someone who has been an auctioneer for 20 years and someone who's been a car dealer now for over 16 years, it's not really what you buy that counts. It's who owned it beforehand and how they maintained it. And so let's figure out who actually owned this vehicle. That beeping you hear is for me putting in reverse and an older person more than likely actually owning this particular vehicle. I did that before it went through the sale. Also, if you look over here in the South, we have a lot of wear issues because the sun is merciless on vehicles. You'll see some nasty paint fade on the very top of vehicles, and most notably on the steering wheels. This over here usually isn't smooth and even. This tells me that this vehicle was garage kept. Also, this actually was fairly clean overall. We can take a look over here and we don't really see that much wear on it. Now a lot of you were saying, yeah, but a Honda Odyssey is going to be a better vehicle and a Toyota Sienna is going to be a better vehicle. And when it comes to long-term reliability, you are 100% completely wrong. A 2005 Chrysler Town Country, according to the Long-Term Quality Index, which has over 6,000 Chrysler Town Countries that have been inspected and appraised by professional mechanics, shows that this vehicle has a defect rate just under 10% at trade-in. That means fewer than 1 out of every 10 Chrysler Town Countries from 2005 had defects. And out of 6,000 altogether, that's a fairly substantial amount. And I guess your next question would be, well, how did the Toyota Sienna do from 2005? Surely it would beat it. It didn't beat it. It just matches it. The 2005 Toyota Sienna has a long-term reliability rating of just under 10% also. And that vehicle has had over 19,000 Siennas that have been inspected and appraised by mechanics since 2013. And as for Honda Odysseys, well, they are the worst of the worst at this point. They have over 27,000 vehicles inspected and appraised, and more than 1 out of every 4 Odysseys from the 2005 model year has a transmission issue. And you can actually see the links below on this YouTube post. So it's a pleasant surprise to buy one of these vehicles and find out that, first of all, it actually on average will have the same reliability as a Toyota Sienna from the same model year. And this particular vehicle had other things going for it. First off, as you can see here, it's what I like to call Y2K loaded. Not only do you get your CD player, but you get your cassette as well. You get driver and passenger cooling heating. So if one of you is wearing a sweater and the other is wearing a t-shirt, you can change it just a little bit and get a little bit more comfortable. And this vehicle, believe it or not, actually was, when new, the MSRP was right around $23,565. Today, I bought it for $1,900 plus a $200 auction fee, and according to the Carfax history, it actually has less than 50,000 miles on it. And I'm willing to bet that when this vehicle was new, it probably went for right around $20,000. It spent its first year, according to the Carfax history, which I previewed before actually buying the vehicle, spent first year in beautiful Michigan. But it was not a rust bucket at all. It was actually garage kept, and after late 08, it made its one-way journey to Noonan, Georgia, which is just south of Atlanta, and it had stayed there ever since. And the reason why I'm highlighting other elements over here, like this Antarctic Heritage Trust, chances are somebody who had this on their driver's side window wasn't somebody who was a headbanger. They weren't trying to abuse their vehicle. And on this side, if we look over here, we see that this person was also into books. Again, not exactly somebody who would be abusing a vehicle on a daily basis. Now, the next question you have to ask yourself is, well, how much is this really worth in the free market? I mean, after all, this is true miles unknown. It's a 14-year-old minivan. You're not really going to be making a mint on this type of vehicle. But, well, could it be worth $5,000? Could it be worth $4,500? Here in the South, if you really want to have a quick sale, which is what I usually do because I believe in selling as many vehicles as possible to have a successful business, I would target this right at $3,500. And the reason is because somebody out there is going to want a low mileage minivan that has been very well kept, and they may not have some of the biases that are promoted by some of the YouTube personalities that are out there. There are some folks who pretend that, well, you know what? Here, let's go ahead and use the unlock right here. Only a Toyota can be a good vehicle, or only Hondas can be good vehicles. And I hate to say it, but some of these people pretend to be experienced souls when it comes to inspecting and appraising vehicles. And honestly, if you only looked at those two brands, then you're doing everybody a disservice. Because there are plenty of vehicles out there that actually are going to have solid long-term reliability. However, you have to figure out the two most important ingredients in that recipe, which are not the brand name or even the model name. They are who owned it beforehand and how did they maintain it and drive it during that time and period. And you're not going to be able to know everything, but if you take the time to find out the history of the vehicle, if you take the time to inspect the vehicle, and if you take time to research the vehicle's history, you could probably eliminate the overwhelming majority of bad vehicles that are out there. And more importantly, when it comes time for you to figure out which ones are worth your time, given all that research, you can actually take it to somebody who is an experienced professional, a mechanic. By the way, these over here are original. They have not been replaced. And out here in the South, where frostiness is standard for older vehicles, that was another thing that was in its favor. If you actually rely on facts rather than the heavily biased and frankly bribed opinions of many of the folks who are YouTube personalities, you're going to come out ahead in life. And you're going to come out ahead when it comes to buying your next best car. So do yourself a favor. We have created a large database with professional mechanics for over 6 years now. That's now the #1 listing on Google if you Google long-term quality or long-term reliability. Take a look by the model year of what out there would actually be worth buying and keeping. You may be surprised that a 2005 Chrysler Town Country with a little bit less than 50,000 miles, that's going to go for only about $3,500 in this particular instance. Maybe if I didn't have to replace that odometer, it would go for maybe around $4,000, maybe $4,500 at most. But meanwhile, a Toyota or a Honda from the same model year with that number of miles would likely go for around, at least down here, probably around $7,500 to $7,900. In other words, you can save yourself a little bit over $3,000, and you can get yourself a much better vehicle in the case of this Town & Country versus the Honda Odyssey. And you won't have to worry about transmissions. You won't have to worry about the fact that they actually never were able to repair them right. They just more or less let those vehicles ride if you look at the history for the Honda Odyssey. And you can get a vehicle that can be a long-term keeper for you and your family. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful day.